The road was quiet that night, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than silence itself, the kind that presses in on you.
Which makes every distant sound feel closer than it should be. And on February 9, 2004, that silence wrapped itself around
Just as a young woman named Maura Murray's car came to a sudden, violent stop against a snowbank on a sharp curve known locally as Weathered Barn Corner, a place already whispered about long before her disappearance, but never quite like this. Because within minutes of that crash,
a young Latina woman would disappear under unclear circumstances, leaving behind a scene so unusual
and more like a story frozen in time, refusing to move forward, refusing to end. Earlier that day, nothing about Maura's actions seemed ordinary, not if you looked closely. Not if you traced the hours backward like investigators would later try to do over and over again.
Piecing together fragments that never quite formed a full picture, because she had emailed her professors claiming there had been a death in the family, which wasn't true.
Packed up belongings from her dorm room at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, as if she didn't plan on coming back anytime soon, and withdrew nearly all the money from her bank account, just under $300, before heading to a liquor store where she purchased alcohol,
vodka, Kahlua, wine, items that would later be found scattered in and around her car, raising questions about her state of mind, her intentions,
and whether this trip had been planned carefully or impulsively. Because the deeper investigators looked, the more it seemed like Maura was trying to disappear. Yet not in a way that made sense, not in a way that left behind a clear path, because she didn't tell anyone where she was going.
Didn't leave a note, didn't make a call that could anchor her destination in reality. As the evening settled into darkness,
her Saturn sedan eventually reaching that winding road in Haverhill, where something happened. Something that caused her to lose control and crash into the snowbank, though the impact itself wasn't severe enough to trap her inside or prevent her from leaving. And that detail would become one of the most haunting aspects of the case.
Is when a local bus driver named Butch Atwood came upon the scene shortly after the crash. He stopped and spoke with her, and what he described would only deepen the mystery.
Because Maura appeared shaken but not injured, and when he offered to call the police, she declined, insisting she had already contacted AAA, which he knew couldn't be true due to lack of cell service in that area. And yet she seemed determined to handle the situation herself.
Almost as if she didn't want law enforcement involved. Almost as if she was trying to buy time in that brief interaction.
He would become one of the last confirmed sightings of Maura Murray alive. Butch returned to his home nearby and called the police anyway, reporting the accident, and within minutes, officers were dispatched. But when they arrived on scene, Maura was gone.
Not walking along the road, not waiting by the car, not visible anywhere within the immediate area. And that window of time, barely more than 10 minutes.
Would become one of the most scrutinized gaps in the entire case, because how does someone vanish so completely in such a short span? On a road with limited access points, in freezing temperatures, with snowbanks lining the sides, and yet leave behind no clear trail.
No footprints leading a way that investigators could definitively follow. No signs of struggle, no indication of which direction she might have gone.
Inside the car, investigators found her belongings, her phone, her keys, her wallet, all left behind, which only made the situation more unsettling, because people don't usually abandon those items unless something forces them to, unless there's urgency or fear involved.
And yet there was no obvious evidence of an abduction. No witnesses reporting a suspicious vehicle stopping at that exact moment.
Were inconsistent and unclear, adding layers of confusion rather than clarity. The cold that night was unforgiving, temperatures dropping well below freezing, and one theory that quickly gained traction was that Maura had wandered into the woods.
Disoriented or possibly intoxicated, and succumbed to hypothermia. But extensive searches in the days and weeks that followed turned up nothing.
No body, no clothing, no trace that could confirm she had ventured far from the road, and search dogs, often considered reliable in tracking scent, produced results that were both intriguing and frustrating, because they followed her scent briefly along the road before losing it abruptly.
As if she had gotten into a vehicle. As if her trail had simply ended, not in the wilderness.
That someone picked her up, introduced a darker layer to the mystery, one that investigators could never fully prove or disprove. Because if Maura accepted a ride from a passing motorist, was it someone with good intentions, or someone who saw an opportunity in a vulnerable moment?
A young black woman alone at night after a crash. Possibly shaken, possibly desperate.
Far from that quiet corner of Route 112, in a place where evidence would never be found, where answers would remain out of reach. As the investigation continued, attention turned to Maura's personal life, her recent behavior, and the pressures she may have been facing.
Because in the days leading up to her disappearance, there were signs of distress. an earlier car accident just days before, emotional turmoil.
Questions about her relationships and future, but none of it provided a clear motive for disappearing voluntarily. None of it explained why she would leave everything behind. Without contacting her family, who quickly became central figures in the search for answers, pushing for renewed investigations, questioning official conclusions,
and keeping her story alive long after media attention faded. Because for them, this wasn't just a case.
Over the years, countless theories have emerged, each one attempting to fill in the gaps left by that cold February night. Some suggesting she planned to start a new life somewhere else, though no financial activity, no confirmed sightings, no documentation has ever supported that idea.
Others pointing to the possibility of foul play, a chance encounter that turned tragic, while some continue to believe the answer lies hidden in the surrounding woods.
Missed somehow despite extensive searches, because the terrain is vast, uneven, and capable of concealing what doesn't want to be found. And then there are the details that don't fit neatly into any single theory. The rag found stuffed in her car's tailpipe.
Possibly an attempt to reduce smoke from a malfunctioning engine, a detail her father had once mentioned to her, suggesting she might have been trying to drive a damaged vehicle further
than it should go, or perhaps something else entirely, something misinterpreted, something that adds another layer of ambiguity rather than clarity. Because in this case, every clue seems to lead in multiple directions at once, none of them definitive, all of them incomplete.
As time passed, the Maura Murray case evolved from a missing persons investigation,
drawing attention from journalists, podcasters, amateur sleuths, and investigators alike, each bringing their own perspective, their own interpretation of the evidence, yet none able to answer the central question. What happened in those missing minutes after the crash? What decision did Maura make?
Or what event occurred that led to her complete disappearance? Because everything hinges on that narrow window, that brief moment when she stood by her car,
spoke to a stranger, and then vanished into the night. And perhaps what makes this case so haunting is not just the lack of answers, but the presence of possibilities, each one plausible in its own way, each one impossible to confirm, creating a narrative that feels suspended between outcomes.
Where every theory carries weight, but none can claim certainty, leaving behind a story that refuses to resolve, a disappearance that resists explanation.
And a question that echoes long after the details fade. On that cold, silent road in New Hampshire, with darkness closing in and time slipping away, did Maura Murray choose to walk into the unknown? Or was she taken there against her will,